They said they wanted to celebrate me. The voicemail from Dad played in my car over and over as I drove up the winding road to the cabin. "Come early, Aileen. We're proud of you. We want to celebrate you," he said. His voice sounded warmer than I remembered. Bozeman was quiet that time of year, late spring, the kind of weather where everything feels like it's thawing. Even the air seemed to whisper that maybe this was a turning point. I wore the cardigan Mom gave me years ago. I hadn't touched it in ages, but today, I wanted to be that girl again, the one who still believed they might mean it this time. I had even rehearsed what I would say, something small, honest, maybe, "Thanks for remembering," just that. I pulled up to the familiar gravel path. Two unfamiliar cars were already parked out front. That made sense. Maybe they'd invited more people. Maybe this wasn't just about me. I took my suitcase out of the trunk. The wheel snagged on a root. I laughed a little to myself. "Some things never change," I murmured. But the laugh faded the moment I got to the front door. The key didn't work. I jiggled it, turned it again, pulled it out, blew on it like that would change anything. Nothing, not a jam, not a mistake, a brand new lock. I knocked, twice. No one came. Tried calling Mom. It rang once and then went to voicemail. I texted her, "Hey, I'm outside." The message turned "read" in less than a minute. No reply. I stared at the doorknob again, my hand still gripping the key like it could undo this. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to step back. I sat down on the old bench by the porch. The wood creaked beneath me, but not like I remembered. It felt colder. The wind kicked up, and a paper napkin flew out of the trash bin beside the door, brown, with the stitched words, "Welcome back" on it. Decorative, festive, dirty. It landed at my feet. I didn't pick it up. From where I sat, I could just barely see through a crack in the blinds. My brother Deacon, my sister-in-law Brenda, glasses in hand, laughing, clinking. A birthday cake sat on the counter behind them, white frosting, golden piping. I leaned a little, focused on the writing. Not my name. It said, "Brenda, you deserve it all." My phone buzzed. It was a message from Mrs. Kellerman, the neighbor who always left casseroles at our door during the holidays. "Looks like the party's started. I thought this was for you." Attached was a photo. Inside, Dad, Mom, Deacon, Brenda, a few family friends, everyone smiling, holding their drinks up like some kind of toast. I stared at it. Not a single person was missing, except me. I wasn't just locked out of the cabin. They had removed me. The voicemail played again in my mind. "We want to celebrate you." It sounded different now. Empty. Choreographed. I sat still. For a while, trying to decide if I felt more hurt or stupid. Then I laughed, low, bitter, the kind of laugh that only makes your throat tighter. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to Monica's name, typed, "They locked me out, literally." But I didn't hit send. I didn't want to sound dramatic, or pitiful, or broken. Even though I stared down at my lap. My fingers brushed my old key. It felt like holding on to something dead. I'd never asked them for anything back. Never asked for my name to be put on anything. I just kept showing up. Until now. I reached down and picked up the napkin, smoothed it out on my knee. "Welcome back." Right. They invited me to remind me I never belonged. I stood, walked to the edge of the porch, took one last look at the door, didn't knock again. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took a photo. Me, suitcase in hand, standing in front of the locked cabin. Captioned it. Showed up, not surprised. Posted it to my private Instagram story. This wasn't over. But today, I walked away. I got in my car. As I turned the key, I looked back one last time. Through the window, Deacon looked up and caught my eye. He smiled, not kindly, just satisfied. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Mrs. Kellerman. This time, a video. "Brenda," glass raised. "To those who never showed up, thank you for leaving space for the ones who matter." I didn't sleep much that night. I had parked behind the gas station just off Route 191, leaned the seat back, and stared at the ceiling for hours. My body ached in the morning, not just from the car seat digging into my spine, but from something deeper. By the time I got to the hotel and checked in, the sun was already up. I dropped my suitcase on the floor like it owed me money, took a shower I didn't enjoy, then sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling. Facebook. Brenda had posted a photo album. Celebrating family, it said. Slide after slide, laughter, wine glasses, a golden cake with her name on it. Mom, Dad, Deacon, all smiling like they hadn't just ghosted their own daughter. The dog made it into 3 pictures. I didn't make it into any. What got me wasn't the omission. It was Dad's post. A photo of the porch. The same bench I had sat on the day before. Captioned, "Home feels whole." That line cut. Not even trying to hide it anymore. I needed answers. No more pretending this was a mix-up or bad timing. I drove down to the Bozeman County Records Office, didn't call ahead, didn't check my hair, didn't even put on lipstick. Walked in with the kind of calm that makes people nervous. "Hi, I'm looking for any public record filings involving the Foster family," I said. The young woman at the desk, Meredith, probably no more than 25, overly polite, tapped away at her keyboard. "Oh yes," she said. "There was a property transfer form submitted recently. It's all public record. Would you like a printed copy?" I nodded. She handed it over like it was a takeout receipt. I walked outside and read it in my car. Cabin ownership transfer meeting summary. Signatories present. Lowell Foster, Celestine Foster, Deacon Foster, Brenda Foster. That was it. My name wasn't on it. The meeting happened 3 weeks ago. At our family's law office, of course. Purpose: reallocation of cabin management and long-term preservation rights. They met, they signed, they made it official, and they didn't even bother telling me. No hesitation, no discussion, no apology. They made a decision and cut me out clean. I didn't go home. I went to their house, the old one on Sycamore Lane. But I didn't knock, just sat there, engine off, windows down. Mom was out front gardening, laughing with Brenda over whatever nonsense they found so amusing. Deacon stood by the porch with Dad, mounting a wooden sign into the front yard. The Deacon Family Trust, established 1985. I stared at it like it was a gravestone, not just because they used my grandfather's year, but because it used to say the Foster Family Trust. Not anymore. They were rewriting history while I sat there watching. A flash came back. I was maybe 19. Just got back from college for the summer. Dad and I spent the afternoon repairing the cabin windows. He said to me, "You get this place. You're the one who understands it, the soul of it." I remember the pride in my chest, the kind of pride you don't say out loud because it's too precious. And now they hand it to Deacon because Brenda bakes cookies and says y'all like she's from some Hallmark movie. I drove back to the hotel with no destination in mind, just muscle memory. Once I got back, I opened my laptop, started scrolling through old emails, then went into the trash folder. Never know what you find in the digital junk drawer. And there it was. A forward chain from Brenda to Mom. Subject: talking points for cabin dinner. Inside the body. Focus on unity. If Aileen asks anything, redirect to Dad. Avoid specifics. She'll get emotional. I sat there staring at the words like they were written in fire. They didn't forget me. They planned around me. They drafted scripts, made strategy. My name wasn't just missing from the documents. It was deliberately scrubbed. You don't redirect someone who's included. You redirect someone you're trying to neutralize. I didn't cry, didn't throw my laptop. I opened a new folder on my desktop, named it Cabin, Facts. Inside, subfolder, What They Took. I started dragging in files, bank statements, screenshots, Venmo transfers, pictures of me repairing the roof, helping Dad repaint the porch, receipts from Home Depot, even one labeled Custom Wood Stain, Dad's request. Every piece of evidence that said, I was here. Monica texted me around then. Need a drink? She wrote. Need a timeline, I replied. This wasn't about being invited anymore. It was about reclaiming what they tried to write over. Just as I was about to shut the laptop down, another email popped in. Subject line: finalize cabin transfer before she asks questions. From lowell.sr@montanaattorneys.org. Meant for Deacon. He typed my email address instead of his. I didn't need to guess anymore. They hadn't just forgotten me, they erased me on purpose. And now, I had proof. I stared at that email one more time before I let myself open the attachment. Subject line, finalize cabin transfer before she asks questions. Sent from Dad's legal office. Meant for Deacon. Somehow, I was CC'd by mistake. And that mistake might be the only honest thing they'd done in this whole mess. I opened every folder I could think of, old email archives, backups, even spam. Then I found it. A PDF. Authorization form, Joint Family Asset Management. My name was there, typed neatly above a signature line. But that signature wasn't mine. Too smooth, too perfect. Not the way I write when I'm nervous or tired or thinking too much. I've signed hundreds of documents in my life. This was a copy-paste. Clean. Almost too clean. I printed it out, drove into town, and walked straight into the only forensic document examiner listed in the area. His office was tucked behind a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a vape shop. He took one look at the signature and said, "You want the short version?" "Always," I said. "This isn't a wet signature," he replied. "It's copied, traced from a scan. Could be from a contract you signed 5 years ago, edited digitally, then dropped in. Whoever did this wanted it to look official without ever letting you hold a pen." I blinked, hard. Could this be a clerical mistake? He raised an eyebrow. "A mistake looks like a smudge. This is invisible by design." I thanked him, paid in cash, and drove home without the radio on. Just silence. The next few hours were a blur. Monica came over that night, brought Thai food and her laptop. We didn't even open the cartons until past midnight. By then, we had pieced together a chain of edits, IP logs, metadata timestamps, Brenda's laptop, Dad's network. This wasn't some emotional falling out. This was fraud, and I was done pretending it wasn't. The next morning, I pulled out a box labeled Retreat Archives from my storage unit, papers and digital backups I hadn't touched since the nonprofit launch we all worked on years ago, back when we still said we. I found the original presentation slides I designed for the family donor pitch. Then I pulled up the final version Brenda submitted to the state for grant eligibility. My section, gone. My words replaced with hers. My designs, deleted. They'd even changed the color palette. The shade of green I picked to match the pine trees outside the cabin replaced with a soft beige Brenda called Neutral Warmth. Neutral. That's what I'd become in their story. Not just removed, but replaced, polished over. I remembered showing Dad the early drafts of those slides. He called me a natural that day. First time I'd heard him say anything close to proud. Now that draft might as well have never existed. I called the woman who helped prep the materials, an intern back then, now an admin assistant. Told her I was just verifying historical submissions for a tax audit. She paused, then said, "They told me to say it was Brenda's. I'm sorry. I didn't think you'd care." I didn't respond at first. Not because I didn't care, because it hit me. They all thought I'd let this go, like I always did. They bet on my silence. And now, I was done playing predictable. I printed everything, ordered 3 copies, bought a fireproof lockbox and labeled it Truth, Personal. Didn't text my family, didn't call, didn't vent online. I wasn't looking for a fight, I was building a case. The next step came without warning. A forgotten alert popped up on my phone, an old app we used for the retreat years ago. It had auto-archived voice recordings for marketing. I clicked, and there it was, my voice, except not, it was my sentence, my words. But sliced and edited, stitched into a soundbite about legacy and family and moving forward. Only I never said it like that. It was spliced together, fabricated to make it sound like I supported what they'd done. I played it again, then again, closed my eyes, and whispered, "They didn't just forge my name. They're forging my story." The assistant's email was polite, almost too polite. "Yes, we have the notarized transfer from the cabin trust files. You may view the originals with an appointment. I replied within minutes, told them I was verifying documents for insurance. That much was true, sort of. I didn't wear the cardigan this time. Business slacks, black blouse, hair tied back. Not for confidence, but for legitimacy. People in offices like that don't see you unless you look like you're supposed to be there. The law firm sat tucked behind a bank and a vacant dentist's office, the kind of place that still smelled like dry toner and microwave soup. I walked in with a file folder, but mostly empty hands. The receptionist looked up and smiled too quickly. "You're Brenda's sister-in-law, right?" I didn't flinch. Didn't correct her, just nodded and said, "I'm here to review a document." They led me to a small meeting room, windowless. Beige walls. I sat down, crossed my legs, waited. A young paralegal came in a few minutes later with a file labeled Cabin Reassignment. She placed it on the table, opened it, and flipped to the signature page. "There it is," she said, pointing. "Authorization by Eileen Foster." I leaned in. It was my name, all right, signed neatly above the line. But that wasn't my signature. It was stiff, clean, even, too even. I sign differently when I'm in a rush, when I'm stressed, when I'm tired. This was machine perfect. I flipped to the date. It was filed the week I was in Arizona giving a workshop. "You said this was notarized?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Witnessed by Mr. Lowell Foster, Deacon Foster, and Brenda Foster. Notarized by a—" She checked the sheet. "Janelle Cross." I looked down at the notary stamp. Cross. I remembered that name. Brenda's cousin. Of course. The form transferred permanent property delegation to Deacon, clean, signed, filed. I asked for copies. "For insurance alignment," I said. They didn't question it. An hour later, back at the hotel, I laid all three documents side by side on my desk. My father's signature was in wet ink, slightly varied each time. Natural, confident, mine, scanned, slightly pixelated, and exactly identical across all three pages. I leaned forward, whispering to no one. No one signs the same way 3 times. They didn't just forge it. They never expected I'd come looking. I opened my laptop, pulled up Photoshop, took screenshots of each signature, laid them on top of each other. Pixel-perfect match. That's not handwriting. That's copy-paste. Monica called while I was mid-edit. "You sound calm," she said. "They just made it easier to prove," I replied. I wasn't mad anymore. I was methodical. Every detail went into a folder. Photos, timestamps, screenshots. I labeled it Truth, Personal. Then I backed it up. Twice. I didn't message my family. Didn't call. Didn't send warning shots. I wasn't interested in making noise. I was building a fuse. Later that night, I looked up the notary who supposedly signed the document. Her license had been suspended last year for procedural violations. She hadn't even been in Montana that week. I circled the date on the notary line in red ink and wrote above it in block letters, "Illegal." I wasn't chasing revenge. I wasn't even chasing justice. I was chasing clarity. "If they think they're protected by paperwork," I muttered, "then I'll let the paperwork destroy them." Around midnight, while reorganizing old files in a bin under my bed, I came across something wrapped in tissue paper. A letter. Handwritten. From Sylvia. My grandmother. I sat down, opened it carefully. "If they ever try to take the cabin without you," it read, "this is my wish. You protect what's yours. I raised you to understand things they never will." Her signature. Ink. Slanted and shaky. Dated. Predating every fake page they've passed around behind my back. I held the letter to my chest. Finally, something with my name on it that was real. The smell of dust and heat hit me the moment I slid up the old storage unit door. I hadn't been back there in years, didn't even remember what was packed where. But I knew the receipts were there, and the folders, and the yellow envelopes with labels I'd handwritten in Sharpie. Dad's request. Roof repair Brenda couldn't afford. For family weekend. I started pulling out one box at a time, flipping through loose papers, wrinkled invoices, curled corners. Furnace install, $6,300. Custom shutters, $2,400. Deck rebuild labor, $7,500. And that was just the first stack. It was quiet in that unit, just me and the echo of every time I said yes. I brought a folding chair this time, sat right in the middle of it all, legs crossed, and added it up for the first time in my life. $142,387. I didn't blink, didn't feel proud or stupid, just stunned by how much they'd let me give without ever acknowledging it. Like the cabin rebuilt itself, like things just got done. I had made it easier for them to forget me. I went home that night, dropped the receipts on the coffee table, and opened every payment app I'd ever used: Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, even direct bank transfers from way back. Each transaction had some vague description: gift, donation, home maintenance, or worse, nothing at all. No emails followed, no thank you texts, not even a Christmas card with a line scribbled in. And the deeper I went, the clearer it got. This wasn't just about money. It was about what I was trying to buy with it. Not a room in the house, not a slice of inheritance, but a place at the table. Each transfer was a handshake with myself. See? You're doing your part. You're valuable. That night, I didn't sleep much. Again. Instead, I called Meredith, the records clerk, asked if she could send over any photos from the most recent inventory of cabin updates. Told her I was working on filing for tax-deductible contributions. She sent me a link with 37 images, labeled, itemized, dated. I scrolled through them one by one until I stopped cold. The guitar I left leaning in the corner of the guest bedroom, gone, replaced by a sleek Bluetooth speaker labeled Brenda's Edition. The embroidered blanket I spent a month making, vanished. And the ceramic vase I gave Mom for her birthday, the one she said reminded her of her mother, now marked Brenda's heirloom. They didn't just take the space, they bleached out the history. Mine. I sat there with that browser tab open, a quiet fury building, the kind that didn't shake or scream, just simmered. I thought about that plumbing issue from 5 years ago, a crack in the main line. Dad had called me, frantic. "I'll pay you back as soon as we refinance." I wired $15,000 within the hour. A month later, they went to Aspen. At the time, I didn't say anything. I told myself, at least I'm contributing. At least I'm part of something bigger. But now, it was so obvious. I wasn't contributing to family. I was funding a stage play where I'd never even be cast. And I kept showing up backstage hoping someone would hand me a mic. Grief hit differently when you realized you were grieving for someone you used to be. A version of yourself that kept paying to be noticed. By morning, I was done staring at the screen. I started scanning every document I had. Receipts, item lists, photos of items before and after they disappeared. Named the folder. Personal Asset Contributions. Cabin. Sorted by year. Matched with payments. Saved it. Backed it up. Uploaded a secure copy to Monica and my lawyer. Then I added one note in the metadata of the folder. If anything happens to me, send this to the press. I deleted the note a few minutes later. Not because I changed my mind, but because I didn't want to dramatize what was now just clarity. I closed the storage bin. Was about to pack everything back into the shelves when I saw it, tucked at the bottom of a plastic crate I hadn't opened since before Mom's surgery. A napkin. Brown. Embroidered. "Welcome back." I picked it up. Same pattern as the one that flew past me on the porch the day I showed up to the cabin. That one was stained. This one? Perfect. Still folded the way I left it when I gifted it to Mom. Part of a set. I whispered. They didn't even bother to buy new ones. It was close to midnight when I finally opened the shared Google Drive. The one we used to upload everything from the cabin. Photos, videos, blueprints, meal plans, even joke slideshows. I hadn't touched it in years. There wasn't a reason to. Until now, the folder that used to be titled Family Cabin Build had a new name. The Deacon Legacy. I stared at it for a long moment before clicking. Inside, the contents were thin, sparse, too clean. Gone were the videos of me laying the first floorboard with Dad. The time Mom had laughed so hard while I spilled paint down the deck steps she almost dropped her wine. Gone. Not misplaced. Deleted. Not archived. Scrubbed. And they didn't just take out the parts with me. They trimmed the story itself. Cropped joy. Flattened memory. The way you do when you need a story to fit a different shape. I closed the laptop, but before I could even process it, my phone lit up. Voice message. Dad's number. I tapped play, thinking maybe it was an apology, a moment of clarity, or even a mistake. It was a mistake, just not the kind I expected. His voice came through, clear and dry. She'll burn out. She always does. Just act normal and don't engage. She'll disappear like she always has. I didn't move, didn't even blink. I played it again, slower. There was no hesitation in his tone, no conflict. It wasn't anger, it was strategy. That's when I understood. They weren't just counting on my silence. They had built their plan around it. They treated it like a family trait, like something inherited, something feminine. She'll disappear. I used to think silence was grace. Turns out, they used it as a tool. I sat there on the floor, back against the wall, and pulled open an old drawer. Inside was a USB drive I hadn't used in years. A black one with a crack in the casing. Plugged it in. It still worked. One of the videos, backup only. A graduation gift montage I had made. Opening clip, Dad handing me the cabin keys. His words, "It's yours as long as you remember what it means." The original file in the shared drive was gone, but here, it was intact. I paused the video frame by frame, watching his hand shake slightly as he passed me the keys. I used to think it was emotion. Now it looked like guilt. I opened a voice recorder on my phone, started talking. For years, I made excuses for their choices, but I was the one choosing not to see. I listed the missed birthdays, the unanswered texts, the offhand comments. "You're too sensitive. Don't start with that now. Why are you always making things harder than they need to be?" Kindness always followed the wire transfers, the checks, the unasked-for generosity. They didn't love me. They loved what I gave them. And when I had nothing left to offer, they decided I was nothing. That night, I wrote the longest email I've ever composed. Addressed to all of them, then deleted it. Instead, I sent the deleted video and the voice message to Monica and my attorney. Included a note. For the record. I didn't need them to understand anymore. I needed them documented. And just when I thought I was done, I remembered the old external hard drive, the one that hadn't booted in years. I plugged it in, left it charging overnight. Sometime before dawn, the light turned green. I clicked it open. There it was, the full-length retreat video, the one I had poured months into. My vision, my voice, my design. In the final scene, my father sat by the fire pit and said, "No one holds this family together like Eileen." I stared at the screen. He looked so sure of himself, so proud, so performative. "You knew," I whispered, "and you erased me anyway." The bank branch was colder than I remembered, or maybe it was just me, the kind of chill that settles in your jaw, makes you bite the inside of your cheek to stay still. I told the teller I needed to verify a trust transfer, and they called over a man named Darren, young, too eager to pretend he knew everything. He pulled up the account with a few clicks and said it like he was reading off a grocery list. "Yes, Ms. Eileen's name was removed in full compliance. She signed the joint agreement via email 6 months ago." I didn't respond right away, just breathed. "Can I see the authorization?" He hesitated, scrolled, then printed, handed me a single sheet. My name sat neatly in a digital signature block at the bottom of the page. The timestamp? The same weekend I was speaking at a business panel in Phoenix. I hadn't opened my laptop once that day. I remembered that clearly. I turned the paper over, as if that would change something. Darren shrugged like it wasn't his problem. "It was submitted from a family email, looked legitimate to us." I nodded, thanked him, walked out like someone who had just been diagnosed with something they already knew. Outside, I stood on the sidewalk and let the cold press into my ribs. They forged my signature. Again. And this time, the institution backed it with a smile. Later that afternoon, I found myself at the city fundraiser. I hadn't planned to go. Monica had invited me weeks ago, and I'd forgotten to decline. Maybe I didn't want to. Maybe I just wanted to see someone who didn't pretend I didn't exist. I stood near the drinks table when I heard a familiar laugh behind me. Deacon, Brenda, and their son, Ryder. He spotted me first. "Hi," he chirped. "Are you the lady who used to help Grandpa?" Then he tugged Brenda's arm and whispered, loud enough, "Is she the family friend from the cabin?" Brenda's smile was tight, controlled. She pulled him gently, whispered something I didn't catch. But I heard enough. Family friend. That's what I had become. I didn't flinch, not in front of them, but inside, it hit bone. They didn't speak of me at home, not even to their kids. My name wasn't just absent from paperwork, it was absent from memory. Deacon walked back toward me a few minutes later, cup in hand, easy expression on his face. "It's just a misunderstanding. Ryder's young. Don't take it personally." I looked at him, full on. "Misunderstanding is when a door is left unlocked," I said. "Yours was locked on purpose." He opened his mouth to say something. I cut him off. "If you think I'll disappear like I used to, think again." His face froze. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't smug. It was calculation, fear of what I might do next. That was enough. I didn't need a scene, just that flicker of shift. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment and recorded a video on my phone, not for the world, not yet, just for me. "I'm not asking them to explain anymore," I said, voice steady. "I'm documenting who they became when no one was watching." I opened my notebook and wrote a list. Inheritance of silence. Below it, every moment I'd stayed quiet to keep the peace, skipped holidays, paid bills, let Brenda take credit for projects, covered up Dad's mistakes in tax filings, called Mom even when she never called back, line after line, a history of swallowing pain for people who called it family. If they could rewrite the narrative, so could I. I opened a blank document. Title: Legacy Isn't Always Inherited. Started typing a memoir-style piece for a women's leadership publication. Anonymous, for now. But not hidden. Around midnight, my phone pinged. Email. From a journalist I vaguely knew from years ago. "Hey, someone shared your video with me. Are you the daughter who got erased from a family trust? I'd like to talk." I stared at the screen. For years, my silence protected them. Now my story was out, and for the first time, I controlled the mic. The email came just after sunrise. I was pouring my first cup of coffee when the notification hit my phone. Subject: Cabin transfer follow-up. Nothing alarming in that, but the message thread that followed, it wasn't meant for me. A junior associate from the law firm had forwarded internal chatter. Probably didn't notice I was copied. Probably never imagined I'd still be watching. Halfway down the thread, Brenda had replied to my father. "Once Aileen realizes it's too late, she'll stay quiet like she always does." I read it twice, then a third time, no apology, no hesitation, just assumption. I froze, for a moment. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed what I'd suspected all along. They weren't afraid I'd fight. They were betting I wouldn't. Screenshot, saved, labeled, intent to bury me. 2 hours later, I was at the local church fundraiser. The one they never invited me to anymore, but where they always smiled like we were still close. Mrs. Kemper was manning the bake sale table, white curls pinned back, smile too big for her age. She looked up when she saw me, her voice as gentle as her apron. "It's nice of you to come. I thought they'd cut you off years ago." I blinked. "Did they say that?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not in words, but silence says more." There it was again, not just family betrayal, social exile. They hadn't just closed the door behind me, they made sure everyone else stopped knocking too. That night, I cleared the dining table, spread every printed document, screenshot, receipt, and audio file across the surface, voice recordings, metadata from deleted documents, financial transfers, the email Brenda sent by mistake. Monica came by, so did my lawyer. We went through every piece, one by one, connecting dates, matching timelines, flagging discrepancies. At the end of it all, my lawyer leaned back and said, "This isn't family conflict, this is legal fraud." I nodded. That was the first time I didn't flinch when someone else said it out loud. We drafted the notice together. The subject line was clear: formal request for ownership reconciliation, cabin property, plus financial damages. Brenda replied first, cold, clipped. "You're being dramatic. This will hurt everyone." I stared at her email for a long time before typing my response. "No. It will only hurt the ones who created this story to benefit from erasing mine." Lowell didn't respond. Deacon tried calling. I didn't answer. Instead, I turned to the part of me that had stayed quiet for far too long. I opened a blank document, titled it, "When Legacy Means Losing Yourself." It was the first time I wrote about any of it for someone who wasn't a lawyer or a friend. It wasn't explosive, it wasn't angry, it was honest. I submitted it anonymously to the local paper's community op-ed section. They published it the next day. It wasn't shared a million times, but it was seen by the right eyes. Messages started to trickle in. Women, mostly. Women who'd kept families afloat behind closed doors, paid mortgages, raised siblings, took the blame and the silence and the burden. "I see you," they wrote. "Thank you for saying it." That was the moment I realized my silence hadn't just protected the people who hurt me, it protected the system that told me to take it. That night, another email came in. This time, from my father. Subject: "Can we talk? No lawyers. Just us." He asked to meet at a diner. Neutral ground. Said he didn't want to drag this into court. I stared at the message for 10 minutes, then wrote back, "I'll come, but I'm bringing truth with me." I walked to my desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out the folder I'd labeled "Final Proof." Placed it gently in my bag. Zipped it shut. He chose the diner on Main Street, the kind with cracked leather booths and coffee that tastes like regret. I knew it before I stepped inside. I also knew why he picked it. Quiet, neutral, far from the cabin and far from truth. Lowell was already seated, tie loose, menu untouched. He looked up when I approached, that rehearsed smile flickering at the corners of his mouth. I didn't smile back. I sat across from him and placed the folder on the table. "We're not here to pretend," I said before he could start his warm-up act. He nodded slowly, then said, "This got bigger than we meant it to." I opened the folder. On top, Sylvia's letter, her handwriting still firm, even in her final months. "The cabin goes to Eileen. No discussion." He read it in silence. Didn't argue. Didn't push it away. I didn't ask if he remembered it. Instead, I pulled out the printed screenshots. Bank records, emails, time-stamped metadata, the forged signature. The notary with the expired license, the copy-paste signatures. I laid them out one by one like puzzle pieces already solved. "You don't have to go this far," he finally said. I leaned back, eyes steady. "That's the difference. I finally know I do." He didn't speak again. I packed everything back into the folder, snapped it shut, didn't shake his hand, didn't say goodbye. I stood and walked out. On my way back to the car, something came back to me at 9 years old, bringing him cocoa after he'd been in the garage all evening. He never looked up, didn't even realize I was there. That used to sting. Now, it just explained everything. The next day, I attended a retirement party for a mutual friend, someone unrelated to the bloodline I used to chase. There was cake on the table, same style, same frosting, familiar cursive, but this one read, "To the ones who show up." I stood there for a second, reading it over. That phrase used to feel like a slap, a dig. Now it just felt true. Recognition isn't about blood, it's about presence, and I had shown up, again and again. Back at home, I framed Sylvia's letter, hung it above my desk, right next to the calendar I rarely used. Below it, I taped a small note in black ink. "I kept the promise. You gave me the strength." Then I opened my journal and titled the final entry, inheritance. I didn't write about land or cabins or money. I wrote about peace. Letting go doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means choosing not to carry their silence any longer. I didn't forgive them. I just stopped waiting, stopped bleeding in private while they posed in public. I put the journal away, brewed a cup of tea, and stepped outside. The morning was still soft, birdsong, mist, no drama, just air. I walked along the river trail, the one Sylvia used to love, the one that curved around the edge of the old pine grove. Halfway down, I spotted something odd near the campsite. A folded cloth napkin, brown, embroidered. I picked it up and smiled. Welcome back. It wasn't torn, it wasn't faded. It was mine now, not theirs. And this time, it didn't ask me to come home. It reminded me I already had.